everyone, before we jump in this week, a little bit of something different. We used to do skits. This isn't a skit, sorry, but it is going to be a little chat.
Way to let them down.
Very quick one. It's been a year since we started the podcast.
Is it?
It has. No, it's not. It's been a year and 2 weeks because I missed the year.
Oh,
so
a
couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it was the start of February, so we're a couple of weeks into the year now.
Wow.
So thank you, everyone. Some people have been listening since episode 1, which is unbelievable. So obviously, we've picked up other people on the way.
My mum, your mum.
Rishi Sunak, all you customers out there. Big thank you for listening every week, and a huge thank you for getting involved in all our socials at Teach, Seek, Repeat podcast on Instagram, and just letting us know how you think the episodes are going, because I don't think we ever expected to even make it to a year. Never mind.
And we love you all, except for that 1 star.
Yeah.
For that one
We
person
are
that gave us the
mentioning it
1
again,
star.
though. We are a bit obsessed with that.
We don't like you. But
Everyone else.
Yeah, lovely.
So I just thought what we'd do, it's been a year. If you wanted to get us a birthday present, you could get a birthday present. All we want is for you guys to please share the podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it with someone. That's invaluable to us. And if you haven't already, we haven't mentioned it, but reviews help us so much, because when someone lands on our podcast on one of these streaming sites, the more reviews, the more reliability, the more people are likely to play. And then obviously, Hayden, once they press play, they're going to stay on there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, why wouldn't they?
And as Dylan said, as I said a long time ago, we do this podcast because we want that podcast money. So we need people to be sharing this so we can get the money for the podcast. That's all we're doing it for, right? Is that it?
Yeah, that's obviously
That's
it.
how we say
Yeah,
yes.
because I think most people make money by not making money for a year. That's a good way to make money.
Wait, have we not made any money from this?
No. This is normally in podcasts where a sponsor would go.
What are we doing?
Don't know.
Needs financial planning. Sponsors.
Same again. There we go.
Joking.
Never
Ongoing
sponsored
joke.
us. Anyway,
Ongoing joke.
Right. We're rambling on. Anyone new has turned off now. So, guys, please can you leave us a review? Please can you share the podcast?
Please.
Just send a
Please do it. Just please, okay?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Teach, Seek, Repeat. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden.
No, it's not. It's Mr. Beg.
Yes. Please.
Everyone's got that kid, haven't they? It's got, no!
Please. Oh, miss.
It's when they do that at the end. Please! I didn't! You did, because you're doing that at the end. So I know you're lying.
Do you just really randomly, because I just said the word miss, do you get called miss all the time?
I get called miss all the time, but there's not an equivalent, because the equivalent is Mister. That just sounds crazy.
Yeah.
A child did once call me Mister, and I was like, "Is this Mary Poppins?" Hello, Mister. Yeah, I'm with my mouse. But there's no equivalent, because the equivalent is Sir, and that's so much higher than
I get
miss,
the odd Sir,
isn't it?
I get the odd Sir.
Don't you feel uncomfortable though when they're like Miss, Sir? It's so different.
I've had a couple of kids over the years that have just decided, no, I'm going to call you
normal in
exclusively Sir. Yeah. I think because it's year 6. They're like, no, Sir. And one of the kids, funnily enough, the other day came up to me and said, what would they call you at secondary school? Would it still be Mr. Stevens, or was it like Sir? And I was like, probably Sir. He was like, okay, I'm going to start doing that. Get ready.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
And then he forgot immediately. Didn't do it once.
Yeah, didn't know who you weren't in your class. It was a year 3 kid. Kid off the street. He's walking to the shop.
It was like some 20-year-old. Oh, God.
They're going to get ready?
He was just some secondary school teacher working out what he's got to do. I think he's going to call me Sir.
Called himself Sir. I'm Sir. Mate, you don't have a teacher qualification. You're just some random bloke from Tesco.
Oh, God, what are we doing?
I don't know.
So anyway, we're recording this podcast quite early in the morning, so we're a bit delirious.
Early
quite
than
woken up.
normal. I mean, I quite like it. We get the best feedback from our delirious ones. I think we should do a midnight podcast, like where we stayed up all night the night before. Completely delusional.
Oh, God.
Get some snacks and stuff. Not sugar for me, but Hayden, how's your no sugar going?
Well, I did eat a third of a cake last night that you served me on a plate.
A third of a Victoria's one. Do you want to explain why it was specifically a third? What did you do?
Right, it's Lauren's birthday the other day, so of course.
So your no sugar February lasted until the 8th of February. Oh no, it didn't. No, it didn't, because it lasted until 9 a.m. the 1st of February when you had a cream egg.
Of course. But 8th of Feb, Lauren's birthday, and this is the problem, right? And in all seriousness, I have an actual problem eating sugar and chocolate.
Yes, you do.
Because, and I know I've said it before.
Yeah.
I knew that the second I could jump on something, I'd take advantage of it, and I've absolutely done that.
Yeah.
Lauren's birthday. Okay, here's the 7th cake.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I'm so bad. And seeing you say no to the cake made me feel ashamed of myself.
Because
I was like, oh,
you should have.
That's why. Because I was the one in Tesco buying it. I was looking at it for ages, thinking, it was Lauren's birthday 2 days ago.
Yeah, I know.
We're going around there for dinner. Should I get? I'll get a cake. And me and Dylan probably will have a bit.
No.
You didn't have it, so I had a third of the cake.
Well, this is because you brought a cake in. Firstly, I was like, you know what? That's fine because I do just need to go over it. If I'm not gonna have sugar, I can't make everyone else not have sugar. That's fine. Yeah. So you brought the cake in, and then you were feeding with her. Lauren was feeding Rory. Your Lauren was just chilling out, and I was doing the washing up after dinner. And you just shout into me, going, "Dylan, can you get us that cake ready?" I was like, "What? That's different. That's different to me knowing it exists." "Oh, I'll cut it up for you." Okay. So there was this cake, and I thought, I can't cut that cake into quarters because then one is for me. By definition, there's 4 of them. So I cut the cake into thirds and gave everyone a huge slice. Yeah. Buttered them up with the sugar.
It was one of those ones from like Tesco Finest, like the small enough ones.
Podcast money is going in, isn't it?
No,
guys, everyone, you need to know. It was one of those Tesco Finest. Not Tesco.
Specific size.
No. Tesco's Finest Victoria sponge with jam made from the suburbs of France, actually. Thank you. It was £74.15 and it was delicious.
I give up. Whatever. Yeah, it was. It was nice. My third was, it was great.
Yeah, because everyone listening, I can think of a Tesco's Extra Finest. I always get that.
Well, yeah, because they're those sizes where you can cut into 4.
No one looks at them. And no one knows. No one's buying them. Cost of living crisis, mate. What is going on?
I'm sorry, I actually just picked up some sponge and some icing. And
I tell you what, though, you must have spent all your money on food instead of clothes because you've got your free top on finally.
Yeah, I finally got my hoot top on. So if you haven't, go back about 5 or 6 episodes and...
I think it was more than that, you know.
What we would do. I never know what we're doing. I don't understand why we got onto a conversation about, it was a game, wasn't it?
I had a little game. It was just stupid. But everyone got involved online.
It's a hoot of owls. That's the collective noun for owls.
Yeah, we decided. It's not Parliament. Don't come at me with your facts and figures and stuff. Parliament.
It's not that Parliament.
Jesus.
Anyway, hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I feel really playful.
Do you?
Yeah. I'm so playful.
Wow, good job. We've got a serious episode on writing assessment.
Yeah. Anyway, should we really quickly catch up and then crack on?
Yeah, go on then.
Because I think writing assessment's going to be a very interesting chat. Anyway, yeah, good. My favourite finger pointing to the air. You know, it's going to be a good point. Writing assessment. Anyway, we went for a curry last week with Paul. I don't know if we mentioned Paul on the podcast before. No. I trained with Paul. Okay, Paul's a guy. He's had a whole career before we got into teaching. He was an engineer or something. He had a whole career before we got into teaching.
Know him well.
I spent a whole year with him.
Engineer
or something. Anyway, I trained with him. We travelled into university together. We had breakfast every morning. He's just a sound guy. Really, really nice guy.
We love him.
And we go for a curry with him. It averages out like once a term. But oh my God, I look forward to it so much. And I know you do as well.
It's always a good laugh.
So we went out with Paul. It's just hilarious. He's just... where he's had the experience of an entire career before teaching.
Yeah.
It's just always been really funny because we walked into teaching as our first career around the same time as he walked in as his second career. And I just always remember going to his room because we ended up working in the same school to begin with. And he'd be there like head in his hands like, boys, you don't know how hard this job is. And I was like, yeah, it's just normal. I'll just work till 7 tonight. And he's like, no, what? This is ridiculous. Because basically, Paul used to enjoy volunteering as a reader at his children's school. So he'd go in like one afternoon a week and read with the kids. And he was like, this teaching lark's great.
Yeah. I'm going to do this.
I'm going to do this. And then obviously you step into the profession. You're like, I've got to do all this. He's just hilarious. So that was nice. Went for a curry. And I printed off some more bookmarks. So this is niche. I have no idea what episode this was mentioned, but it was a long time ago. And if you scroll back far enough on our Instagram before all the memes that I've posted, there was a picture. I've made bookmarks with Hayden's face on it, and it's a screenshot from a YouTube video we did. And the kids obviously are obsessed with it. And I've had this group of girls from, I think, your class, or maybe a different class in year 6, who have seen them because I gave just 4 out like they were gold dust.
Yeah.
And they've been pestering me for about a month, like, can we have this, please? I'm like, yeah, sure. But obviously you have 16 other jobs that actually need to get done before you make a bookmark of your face. Yeah. I finally gave it to them. They were so excited and they ran off. And they were like so great. They're like, thank you so much. Like they couldn't have been more grateful.
Yeah.
They ran out into the playground at lunchtime. And so I turned away to get ready for my lesson. And I just looked out the playground again. And what did I see? The girls surrounding the head teacher, shoving it in his face. And the head teacher like just bewildered like, oh, okay.
Knowing immediately that it was you as well. And
I reckon his first thought it was Dylan. I reckon his second thought was, I bet Hayden's done that for himself.
Yeah, that's the kind of stupid thing.
You're the second most likely person.
All I saw that day was I thought it was really sweet. Actually, it's quite funny. I was dismissing the kids at the day, and the whole school's kind of at the same place. We can all see each other, and I just saw a kid walking out from year 4 or year 5. I don't know, probably your class, just with it in her hand. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. Everything else, reading book, shoved in the bag. Everything else, letters, shoved in the bag.
Left her shoes in the classroom. Not got shoes on.
But really important that we hold this, because obviously just really immediately wants to show, look what Mr. Price made us. Look, this bookmark, Mr. Stevens' face on it.
Oh, man, it's so good. I was thinking of starting to make it an incentive for reading. Honestly, just like, okay, if you read 3 times a week for this whole time, you get a Mr. Stevens book.
Oh, it works.
Yeah,
I did it years ago. Do you remember?
Baby Mr. Price.
There's a picture of of Dylan as Mr. Price. There's a picture of Dylan as a baby, just looking in areas because he's like really posed well. You must be like 2.
Yeah, I look simultaneously 2 and 57.
Yeah, you look like an old man, but a baby. And I was like, this is brilliant. So I turned them into little laminated cards and made them a reward to like incentivize my maths class.
Remember,
to do
I signed
stuff.
5 of them.
Yeah,
they were signed. Signed trading cards. There were like 50 altogether, and 5 were signed, and it was just random luck.
So they were desperate for the signed one. Oh god, it was so funny. It worked though. They would do anything for those cards. They're like trading cards.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Good.
But yeah, no, apart from that, it's half term. Absolutely buzzing. Just that half term feeling. Never beat that. And we're getting the house done. That's not stressful, I guess, because we're just starting now after the baby came. Baby put a pause to it. Anyone doesn't know, we moved house at the end of August. Baby came start of October. We spent them 5 weeks just getting the house habitable for him.
Yeah.
And then since then, we've not done anything. Finally starting to actually get some stuff done. So no one's interested. Before I had a house, people would talk about house renovations. I'd be like, I don't care.
I've switched off already.
Yeah. So there you go. We're getting our house done. How's your week, Hayden?
Yeah, it's all right. Half term.
Cool. Nice one. Anyway. So. Go on.
Oh, I'm done.
Come on. Nice one.
No, I've only got one thing to say.
One thing? Better be good.
This is awful because you'll feel this pain, and anyone
I don't know what's coming.
will feel this pain. I accidentally left my independent rights at school,
Oh.
and they've got to be marked like. Ready
Well, they've got to be teacher assessed. your key stage 2 year 6 writing has to be teacher assessed.
Yeah, it does.
That's interesting.
Yeah, these books have got to be marked. Yeah, forgot them, so that's annoying. So they've got to be done sometime in the week now. Ugh.
I'm just thinking back to the start of the episode where you said, you've done some other thing happened this week, and you said you've got one thing, which is you left your books at home. Didn't want to mention your girlfriend's birthday and you trip away with your baby.
Well, I was going to mention that as well.
Oh, you said one thing.
Yeah, so one thing about school. And then one other thing. Guys,
get the
really
important stuff out of the way.
Really good experience. We're sponsored now by Port Lim. No, we're not. We're not sponsored by them. But I did
if they want to.
Yeah. I did go to Port Lim for Lauren's birthday.
What's Port Lim? Because we've got a lot of listeners who don't live in this very specific area of the country.
Okay, Port Lim is not actually a zoo, is it? It's a wildlife reserve. I don't know. It's a zoo.
It's a posh zoo.
It's a posh zoo.
It's not a zoo. What are you on about? It's not a zoo.
Listen, Tesco finest.
Sorry.
Tesco finest cakes. I go to wildlife reserves.
It's not a zoo.
You're not going to catch me.
Sorry, what case? It's not a zoo. It's not a zoo. When you go there, what do you see? Is it?
Well, I saw a beautiful treetop bubble that we stayed in. It was a fantastic experience.
Did you take your Tesco Extra Finest sponge?
I took my Tesco Extra Finest sponge, and we stayed in our bubble, and we walked around the wildlife reserve.
We need to start looking at the dividends they're given out in our business. I don't know how you're getting all this podcast money from somewhere. What's going on?
But it was really nice.
Yeah,
I do recommend it. Anyone that's
nature reserve.
Anyone that lives
a zoo. Excuse me. I did not go to a bloody zoo. I went to a nature reserve, don't you know?
A wildlife reserve, actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, it's not a nature reserve. It's not a bloody bird sanctuary. I saw rhinos and everything.
It's a Wigan Wildlife Park that you went to.
Sorry.
But very much recommend it. If you live in the south of England, do check out Port Lim.
No zoos in Kent. Too much for zoos in Kent.
Okay, whatever. Just go there. It's great. It's great.
Right, should we get on? Should we crack on?
Yeah, let's move on. God, Christ.
All right, guys.
Take 3.
It is take 3. It's not my fault. Anyway, you've really thrown me off there.
I had a groggy throat.
Stop coughing. You got a mouthful of Victoria Sponge. Are you trying to do a podcast? Sorry, Tesco Finest Victoria Sponge. Anyway, you guys have seen the title before we have, because we always decide the title after we filmed. I'm like, what's the best title for this podcast? But you get the gist. It's about writing assessment. So I just want to stew it back, Hayden. You've done some research here, because last night I was sleeping. So you've done some research whilst I was just chilling out. I want you to tell me, okay, and all the listeners at home.
Well, I'll tell you, Boris. What do you want to know?
I want to know. For anyone at home, whether a teacher or not, what is writing assessment? Okay, so when you get to the end of Key Stage 2, which is Year 6, we've all heard of the SATs, Maths and English. Mm-hmm. But there's obviously a bit missing there, which is writing. Because in English, we're talking about tests for comprehension, right? And GPS, grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Yep. But we still need to somehow make sure people know where children are if they're writing. So what's the history of this? What did teachers have to do? Where have we ended up today? What's going on?
Okay, let's just go back in time a bit and set some context.
Right.
Because do you know what? As a teacher, I didn't really know the full history of this. And so some of you guys
we qualified in 2014, right?
Yeah. So
vague memories of being at school.
Yeah, exactly. So our system now is very different to probably what we went through at primary school, right? Okay. So going back in time a bit, 1988, the Education Reform Act, which we have talked about before when we talked about the curriculum.
Big moment.
National curriculum comes in, and with that comes in the SATs, so the Standard Assessment Tasks. I never
knew what that was.
I always thought it was standardized assessment tests, but it's not.
No.
It's standard assessment tasks, as was the SATs, right? And they were like, okay, we need to assess kids. We do actually need to know if this national curriculum is working or not.
Sure.
So it kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. And they brought in the Key Stage 1 SATs, so at the end of Year 2, and Key Stage 3 as well, so in secondary school.
Right.
And then a few years later, in 1995, I guess when that first cohort got to Year 6,
would be,
they introduced the Key Stage 2 SATs, which are probably the most famous SATs, really. Because later on, the Key Stage 3 SATs were actually scrapped. I think you might not have done it, actually.
I think I missed it.
I think I was the last year to do it.
Yeah, I think I didn't do it.
Key Stage 3, because it was like Year 10, just before the GCSEs, we had to do these other tests. So I was like, why
no, I don't know, actually. No, because Key Stage 3 is Year 9, isn't it?
Oh, Year 9, maybe. Yeah, not Year 10. Year 9. Yeah. And I remember doing the SATs then.
Yeah, I don't think we did. Yeah.
So 1995, Key Stage 2 SATs come in. And it was interesting because it got boycotted massively by the unions back then. Because it was
what was it? What do you mean? What was even happening? Was it writing or what?
So the SATs, it involved maths, English, and science.
Right.
So it was everything. So it was kind of similar to the tests we do now in maths.
In a sit-down formal test.
A sit-down formal test. So for writing, it was alongside like reading and things. For writing, they also did a sit-down formal test where it was like, here you go. Here's your prompt.
Right.
So it was a random genre.
Yeah.
Here's your prompt. You've got like an hour. I can't remember what the timing was, but it was an extended piece of writing. And then that went off and was externally marked, just like all the other tests are marked.
So just one piece of writing?
One piece of writing. One piece of extended writing.
Anyone who teaches now who wasn't around then probably thinks that's crazy.
Yeah, it feels mad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there were, and what we're going to look at a bit later in this episode is a review that came in 2011, which is what ended up changing it to what we have now, the kind of teacher assessment model.
Yeah.
And in that review, it was saying, like, this is a really flawed system currently because, you know, listed off a few reasons, which we'll go into.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, just back to the history of it. So when it all came in, the teachers' workload went up massively.
In what way?
In marking tests and things. They had to mark all sorts of tests. I don't know if they had to mark the actual SATs. I don't think so. But there was loads of marking involved.
Right.
Which wasn't paid at the time. I don't really know exactly why that happened.
Maybe, do you think, was it like the SATs were being passed around? Like you'd mark a different school SATs?
Yeah, not sure.
Because again, for anyone listening, I'm sat here listening to you, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, can you clarify? Because I don't understand. Because it's crazy to think now that in the Year 6 SATs, you'd then do marking. Like, unless you've opted in for money. Yeah.
Which is terrible, by the way. I don't know what the exact workload was, but they estimated that about 44 hours of additional workload came in for teachers with the SATs. And teachers were obviously just like, no, what are you talking about? Yeah. Why am I going to do that?
And it's funny because now it's about 57 hours.
Yeah, 44 hours now. It's like, cool, that's nothing. But, you know, the unions tried to boycott the whole thing. It was like, no, get rid of what are we doing? This is mental. Yeah. But we need to be paid.
But that's really interesting because I think you get a lot of union bashing lately from people outside of education and stuff. And even I think inside education now, I talk to a lot of people about the unions and they're a bit like, well, they're not enamored by them, even though we've gone through the strikes and stuff. They're like, well, okay, well, we did get this. Like, what are they still going about? I think it's important to remember it's stuff like this actually in the past, which they've done their job.
Yeah,
like you can't just introduce all of this and just like, okay, here's an extra, and then the unions actually stood up. If they hadn't done that, perhaps at the minute, nothing would have changed.
Well, I remember reading from the report. I didn't write it down, but it said that initially they estimated an increase in teacher workload of like 30 hours. That's what they like budgeted for.
Right.
How
can you budget?
I know. Oh, we'll just have 30 hours. That's fine. 30 hours. That's fine.
The budget is 0. Let's put 30 hours in.
That's about right. Yeah. But it went up to about 44, and the review was saying. So people were obviously annoyed that this is like it's not even. It's higher than they weren't even happy about the 30 hours increase, but that at least was like this is what it's going to be, and it was more.
That's crazy.
So that's what it used to be up until around. So there was a review in 2011.
Okay. So at this point, there's a science test
There's a science test,
an English reading test, an English writing test, an
yeah.
English grammar and punctuation.
No, so
spelling.
the writing kind of included some grammar punctuation elements. I think there was like a
interesting.
spelling test that went with it.
Okay.
But that kind of encompassed all of that.
Sure.
And I believe there was even a speaking and listening. I think I remember doing that.
Yeah.
There was a speaking and listening thing that kind of just got phased out.
Yeah, that's not really anything now, is it?
No, it's just not a thing.
Yeah.
And
obviously maths is just stayed the same.
And maths, there was just maths tests, which I'm sure have slightly changed in format,
Yeah.
but they've always been the same sort of thing.
Okay.
So that's what it was. That's what it was for a long time.
So what was the issue with the fact it was a test then? What like other than workload and stuff?
Yeah.
What is the issue with there being a writing test? Because no one seems to have an issue with there being a maths test.
Right. So this was really interesting. So I read this review. It's called the Lord Bew Review in 2011. The Bew Review.
Lord Bew sounds like someone who has Tesco finest cake.
Yeah. I saw that name and I thought, I'll read that. I'm reading that.
That's my G.
That's my kind of guy. My G. No, my guy.
My guy.
Honest. So I've actually wrote down what he and his team assessed as like the problem with this, writing test. And the first thing was too dependent on genre. Right. So because it was just one piece of extended writing, a lot of the complaints from schools were, some of my kids just don't read that this genre doesn't really suit them, and they don't want to write about it.
It's non-fiction, but they're really imaginative.
They're really good. It's pot luck what genre they got. So some kids would perform better.
So it was really just a simple prompt where it was write a diary entry, and then their whole assessment for writing was based on that.
I haven't seen an example of it, but that's the impression I get from the review.
Crazy,
is that it was just one piece of extended writing.
Yeah. And you get a level.
Yeah, and you get a level at the end of it. Yeah. It went off to be marked, which we'll come to in a minute.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. The next thing was it was way too subjective because it was external markers. I'm imagining it was the same system now where it's just you could just be an external marker and apply to be that. Usually teachers doing it. One external marker. Really, really subjective then, based on their opinions on writing. Yeah,
because if they think, for example, if they value GPS, grammar, punctuation and things much more highly than imagination, let's say, but another writer values like an amazing story that hooks them and they can forgive the odd capital letter.
Exactly that.
They could both get the same level, but if it's incomparable, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, that was mentioned in the report, that bias towards punctuation and things that some people valued more. So it was a broken system, and it was interesting because it was comparing it with other countries as well, and saying that England was an anomaly.
Sure.
Because in basically everywhere else in the world at the time that was doing writing assessment in the same sort of way with an exam, there was always at least two external markers, not related. So they're just two people independently mark it, and then the kind of they look at
amalgamation.
The average, like anything, judges for anything like boxing or whatever. Like you're not going to have one person. Are you? You have a few people, and then you look at the scores to find an average or something.
Yeah.
So that was another thing. The next one was, and I think this is a really fair point. It was just unrealistic that every single child will perform their best on that day. Therefore, comparisons between the children, it's not really fair because some kids they're just not going to produce their best piece of writing on that day.
Is that not true for any test ever?
Well, yeah, I guess so. But I suppose at least with, let's take example, at least with maths tests, at least there are 110 questions.
Sure.
For you to get an idea of their maths understanding. Like they might not perform their best on that coordinates question that day, but it's not going to be the be all and end all.
Okay, so it's not in the same way. More children are likely to have a bad day writing than they are a bad day in maths.
I guess the comparison could be if there was 7 writing assessments.
Sure.
At least, if one of them they fluffed a little bit, you could clearly they weren't doing their best on that day. But it wasn't. There was just this one opportunity to write.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do your best on that day, for whatever reason, external reasons, or you're just nervous, or you just feel sick or whatever.
Yeah. Bad genre, like you've already said.
Bad genre, it's just not fair to be like, okay, all these kids did their best, let's compare them all.
Yeah.
So that was another thing. And 2 more things. It wasn't very reflective of the writing process, and it still isn't now. If you think about the writing process, if you're in schools, how often do you actually... to get an assessed piece of writing, do you just go to the kids 5 minutes before they do it? Right, this is what you're doing, guys. You're going to write a newspaper report, and it's going to be on this. Off you go, and I'm going to assess this piece of writing. Yeah, you just wouldn't. Like some schools do cold writes, don't they? Where they at the start of a unit, they'll do a bit of writing like that to then show them the progress 3 weeks later or whatever. But like as a final piece, you don't do that.
No.
And finally, it was just, and I'm glad they mentioned this, it's just hard to mark it. It literally just said it's just really difficult to mark writing.
Yeah.
So that's
and put it in a box. We find that now. We're going to talk about it later and how it's moved and like what it's gone to. But I find that tricky now. I find that really hard. So, okay, this new system's introduced.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
following that review, by the way. So that review came out.
So it was accepted and it was widely found. Okay, fine. So this new system comes in. I've spoken to people who were around when it moved. Okay.
Right.
And they say, but thank goodness they got rid of the old way. So as teachers who have qualified a bit later and only know teacher assessment, which is away from an external test, and we'll talk about what it is now in a second. But before we do, I know for a fact that move from a tested assessment with one person marking it and that's it, to a more wholesome teacher assessment approach
look at writing
from the person who
time.
teaches them over time, you're with them every day. That was seen as a really good move.
Yeah.
So whatever we're about to say now in terms of how the system is, I don't think that the answer will be to go back to the old system.
Yeah. No,
so it's really interesting then. What we see today then, we're going to compare it with what you're about to tell us. What was supposed to happen? What was it supposed to look like when it changed?
Just before I say that, I've got one little point to make, because I thought it was really interesting that in this same report that was suggesting we move to teacher assessment of writing over time, it was also, as a good report would do, it was kind of highlighting the potential flaws of that as well.
Yeah.
And it was just saying there is just one issue with teacher assessment, and that is just the reliability of it. If you've got thousands of teachers across the country, and it's supposed to be a standardized testing system, there's going to be some.
It's not going to solve that issue of it being hard to mark and judge.
And I thought this was really interesting. I think you'll find this interesting because I just hadn't thought of this before. And one of the points they made in the review was that studies had shown that minorities were under-assessed compared to white counterparts. Across the country?
In which part?
In English writing.
Yeah, during the test or after the test moved?
No, so they were doing some studies on teacher assessment before they'd done the changes.
Right, okay.
Because some teacher assessment was already happening.
Sure.
So and they were doing studies on it, and they were showing
in order to be able to say let's move to teacher assessment,
basically,
they had to see it was viable.
Exactly that, and they were seeing that there was actually already an unfair bias.
Sure. With minorities.
Yeah, with minorities. Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting.
That's a well-known thing with job applications and stuff now.
Yeah.
You've got to, there's systems and stuff that big companies buy into where it's completely anonymized.
Yeah.
And you don't see the name and stuff because it's just proven beyond doubt. There's some people out there who get red in the face when anyone mentions there's racism in the world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, there isn't.
Unconscious bias racism as well, that kind of stuff. It does exist.
Of course it exists. And it's been proven time and time again that if you see a name where you can associate that with an ethnicity, the exact same CV with a name which you associate with a more traditional British English white name, more often than not, they go for the traditional English white name.
Yeah.
Unconsciously. Not saying someone sat there being horribly racist in their mind, I'm going to be horrible.
Yeah, they might be.
But also, even if they're not consciously doing it, it's still a huge problem.
Yeah,
and if we're going to move to teacher assessment, you need to be aware of that.
I thought that was super interesting because I'd never really heard that argument made before.
Yeah.
With teacher assessment writing.
Yeah, of course.
And the second thing was, and this is really interesting, this probably make you laugh because we're going to talk about this a lot later, is that teachers, there's a chance teachers will make generous assessments if the pressure increases. So under increasing pressure to perform.
Guys, tune in for this whole episode, please, because we're going to have a long chat, I think, at the end of this episode about why that might be a problem and what we've seen, I think, and more heard, I guess.
The answer to this, I guess, from their point of view was, okay, we need some sort of moderation then.
Okay, right.
We need to moderate writing.
If we bring in teacher assessment, it has to be moderated.
If we bring in teacher assessment, we need to moderate.
Let's look then. What's it supposed to be then? So they get rid of the test.
Yeah.
And this report comes out and it says, okay, look, we've looked at the drawbacks of teacher assessment.
Yeah.
We need to make sure all of this is involved, no problem. We're going to move now away from a test to this new system where the teacher decides what level the children are at. Here's what it should look like. So what did they say at the time, 2011?
I'm going to read this. I'm not even going to summarize it. I'm going to read this to you because I thought it was so interesting. I copied and pasted it here. So 2 paragraphs.
Can you read it in the voice of what you think Lord Bute would sound like?
However...
Okay, stop.
I'm not doing it. I would never do that.
Wait, is it?
I'm going to read this bit first. Okay, you'll like this bit.
Okay, go on.
And then this is the juicy bit.
All right, here let's go. Ready,
first
guys?
Bit.
Yes, get comfortable. It's a long old read coming up.
I like that they put this in, and I knew you'd like it, which is why I did it.
Go on.
It said, however, there is much more to writing than spelling, punctuation, grammar, vocabulary, and handwriting.
Okay, carry on.
And we believe writing composition in a wide range of forms for different purposes and audience should also be a core part of the statutory assessment of writing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So this was in a chunk where it was talking about
back in the day,
the reliability of basically teachers were assessing the writing, but some were just basing it on SPAG, GPS, some were basing it on the creativity. And it was like, can we accept that there is more to writing than being able to put the commas in the right place?
But here's the problem. We're going to talk about it later, so I don't want to get too much into it. But as soon as you open up creativity as it should be,
Yeah.
As it should be, by the way. But as soon as you open that can of worms to say we should also be judging the creativity of their writing, it's so like subjective.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's really, really hard.
Which is why we always fall back into not doing that.
Yeah. So we'll talk about later what it's turned into.
Here's
so Hayden, what should it look like?
Here's the juice.
I've been asking you for 10 minutes now. What should it look like?
This is the summary. This is it. This is what they suggested. And I read this and I thought, wow, is this like now?
You should keep telling me what you thought when you read it instead of reading it.
I'm building it up. This is called tension.
Lord Bew.
Suspense. Here we go. Ready?
Yep.
We do not wish the moderation process to impose additional burdens on teachers.
Keep reading.
We do not feel it would be helpful or appropriate for schools to create portfolios of work or specially prepared showpiece examples. We believe it would be most appropriate for moderation to review exercise books and other examples of marked written work of a range of purposes, for a range of purposes taken from the whole teaching year. This could include written work from other subjects as well as English.
Sure.
If moderators review marked work produced in the course of everyday teaching in year 6, together with the teacher's associated comments, really clear here, they will get a strong sense both of the pupil's attainment and the teacher's assessment skill.
Yeah.
Without creating any additional workload.
Yeah.
We feel it may also be helpful for moderators to have the option of meeting the pupils whose work they have reviewed.
Wow. Right. That's
what it was supposed to be.
Can I summarize quickly here?
Yeah.
Because the gist I'm getting from this is, to correct me if I'm wrong, from you reading that to me, the idea is that if we're going to get teachers to assess the writing, don't do anything differently. Continue to teach your children writing throughout the year. At the end of the year, pick up their exercise book, look at everything they've produced and done, and then come to an assessment where it's like, okay, well, cool. If I'm moderating this now, I can see the teachers picked up capital letters at the start of the year, full stops, and I can see that's moved a bit across here. This person's still working on maybe putting clauses together with conjunctions, or maybe even stretching their writing with semicolons and really pushing their punctuation. But also I can see that we've done a lovely diary entry here, and then they've moved on to a non-fiction, non-chronological report, and I can see here a newspaper report. That's really tricky.
They've got good transferable skills.
Yeah, I can see coming across here all these things. So like a holistic approach, which is just looking at the year that they've been given.
Talk to the child a bit as well.
Yeah.
Talk to the child, talk to the teacher, really holistic.
Yeah.
It's not I don't want to see these published pieces of work in a special book where the teacher hasn't touched it. Yeah. I just want to look at their book. Yeah. Because it doesn't need to be extra work, guys. You don't need to go home and spend your half term. Yeah. You know, doing basically a moderation every single time you mark their independent writing. Yeah. Just teach them English, and then we'll just look at their whole book at the end of the year, because I'm professional enough to look at that writing and know when it's the kid's handwriting and know when it's the teacher suggesting to do something. I'm not stupid. I can see when the kids have done it themselves because they wrote it.
It's really weird because all the work in between their independent rights is terrible. But then it comes to their big rights, it's really good.
So look at the whole book.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So
that's what it's supposed to be.
That's what it should have looked like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my point here is, what kind of... So that came in, cool. Obviously, we know over time it's been eroded and the pressure has increased, like they said it was going to be. I want to talk firstly about this whole idea of independent writing. So what we've seen here in the suggestion in the Lord Bew's report over a decade ago now, just over a decade, is you simply teach writing. Writing is really complicated.
Yeah.
Writing, I think, is the hardest thing to teach children well, and the hardest thing to get really good work out of the children. If you're teaching them maths, you can model things and you can follow processes and you can have these kind of crutches to go onto. And once you know how to add, you know how to add. Once you know how to work out the mean average, you know how to work out the mean average. You can just practice it. With English comprehension, even reading, clarify meaning, that's harder than maths, reading comprehension, because you can't teach children what all of the words mean. You can't teach children what all of the spellings are. You can do spelling rules. You can teach them ways of trying to work out what a word might mean. You can teach them retrieval skills. Cool. When it comes to writing, it's really hard because suddenly we need to judge them on independent writing. Yep. We need to see what these children can do themselves when they sit and write. That makes sense. Of course, you know, if we're going to assess children on what they can do when I'm sat next to them telling them what to do, that's completely pointless. It's really hard to do that, though. I just want to get that across to people. It's really hard to get good writing. So is this system now, because of teacher assessment, do you think that has directly caused an increase in teachers being generous with their assessment, teachers being stressed, teachers basically, and the overall point of this section I want to be is, how independent is there independent writing at the minute?
I think it's a totally broken system.
Right.
I read the review and I felt I almost forgot that it's 2024 and I thought I was back in 2011. And I read that review last night and I thought, this is really good.
Yeah.
I actually like this. I like what this was suggesting and I think this was a massively positive change. I just don't think it happened because what I just read there is not the reality right now.
No.
That's not how things happen. You know, you go around to a school, the chances are they do have these what do they call it? Showpiece examples, specially prepared showpiece examples in a separate book. They do have them.
But okay, explain to people then, why do they have these published bits of work?
It's honestly the harsh reality of that is so that they can over-assess the children.
Yeah.
That is the only reason.
Yeah.
It's not because because we really value our children rewriting all of their work again.
No, because you think about it, it's almost a complete waste of time.
Schools, I think, try to. When they try to convince themselves that they're not doing the wrong thing, they do try to say things like, oh no, because it's great for the children, because then they get to see their finished writing all published all nicely. It's like, kids don't care. No. I've never met a kid in my life that cared about that.
Can I talk about the process with a published piece of work?
Yeah.
So very clearly here, what we're supposed to do is just teach kids writing. It says explicitly, look for teacher comments and assessment because we can see how well the teachers can give feedback.
Yeah, and also you can use the teacher's feedback to see how they're doing as well.
Exactly.
I think that's the point.
And has been edited by them, given the teacher feedback. Because it's independent writing, but we're in the room still.
Yeah.
You know, we're still going to help the children to achieve well, but they still need to do it. But with a published piece of work, and if you're sat at home working in a school, you probably know exactly what I'm going to say. And if you don't, this is what happens in schools. This is when you see rule writings, everyone's expected at writing, everyone's expected level. It's because this is happening. There is no school in the land, in my opinion, where completely independently...
In the land.
Sorry. Where completely independently, a whole class of children are meeting the expected standard in writing.
Of course
the expected standard in writing is incredibly hard to get. It's the hardest of all of them.
Why is the expected standard of writing now stupidly high?
We'll talk about that in 1 second. But what happens when they publish?
Yeah.
This is what happens. Children will write a piece of writing, okay? It might be that they've been given a prompt. It might be that on the whiteboard, there's loads of sentence starters. It might be that next to them on their table is an entire example of what they're supposed to be writing where they can constantly look at it and just change the words around a bit and make it their own and kind of change their theme. Maybe that's a non-chronological report on lizards and they're going to write a non-chronological report on sloths and they can get a lot of the sentence structures and copy them into their book. And then once that's written, the teacher can painstakingly be forced to go through that like a fine-tooth comb and get everything that's wrong with that piece of work, write in it, cross it out, rewrite it, put the right thing here. Why don't you try this sentence starter? Fix all of these full stops. You've got no capital letters for common nouns in there. Why don't you extend this sentence with this and then write the end of a sentence? Completely write all over it. Oh gosh, no, the moderator can't see that though because it's my work now. It's the teacher's work. So maybe we could get the children to publish. Yes, because publishing's brilliant for the children. And it's not a complete waste of a lesson just to get them to copy out the teacher's work, which they've written down. Yes, let's get them to publish it in a publishing book.
Hang on, Dylan.
And then the moderator can only look at the publishing book.
Yes, we won't take the other book.
No, let's
just
not take
the finished work because we don't want to show them.
No.
Yeah.
I want to show them that we've completely cheated, which is what it is. It's cheating. The class teacher, and I've heard stories, Hayden. Luckily, I've not been involved in anything like this personally. I've heard stories from people where they have been forced to literally take all of the books home by SLT, who are desperate for the good scores to come along. And I will say this, we bash SLT sometimes, and I do feel bad because there's some amazing leaders out there. We work right now with some people, I would never want to do that at all with them, but you hear horror stories. I will say though, with writing, it is really widespread. This is very common. And the extremes of it is, they get forced to take the books home. This is a person I knew of who trained with me. Had to literally type up, rewrite every piece of work from the writing that was in the work, fix it, write it up, type it, print it, give it to the children and say, okay, here you go, I fixed everything. The children would have to sit there and copy it into their publishing piece of work.
So they could say that the kids did
so that they could then go to the moderator and say, look, no teacher writing, it's completely the work of the children.
It's totally independent.
Yeah, and if they took their work, which they took in the first place, Nowhere near it. And this fudging is a constant cycle, because if one school does it, oh my God, their scores are amazing. Okay, well, we need to do something. We're going to have to put Post-it notes in their book every single time there's a mistake.
Oh,
and
that's a classic.
Oh, do you know what's great about Post-it notes? We can rip them out at the end and it looks like the kids did it themselves. Yeah. It's cheating. The cheating is so widespread in this writing moderation.
Yeah. It's just normalized now as well. You know, I've been to lots of writing moderations and it is totally normalized. When I see now, I actually refuse to do it now. I don't care. I think the rules are stupid, and I'll sit there and justify moderation every single time. I'll write in their book every single time. Yeah. I'll write all over their work. I'll give them feedback every single time, because that's how they learn. Yeah. So whenever I see now in a moderation, which is basically every single book from anyone else, when I look at their work and their last 8 bits of independent writing have got no teacher comments on them or anything,
suspicious.
I'm like, oh, so they just. What they just knew what to do, did they? Like, what do you mean? Of course you've given them feedback. The fact that you haven't given them feedback in the book like you would do for every other subject ever means that you've actively thought, I won't do that because that's cheating.
I'll hide it.
I'll hide the marking and I'll do it some other way. It's obvious. It's obvious. Yeah. And a lot of you probably listening right now, and I wouldn't be surprised, and we're not having a go at you, I wouldn't be surprised if you're a year 6 teacher particularly, if you do something like this. Yeah. And it probably wasn't even your idea, and you probably at first thought this is stupid and taking up loads of my time, but you do it anyway because that's what everyone does. Yeah. And I've worked in year 6 for many years. I've seen many different systems of doing these things, and I've met lots of teachers from lots of schools who have all these crazy fun ways of cheating, and every single person justifies it. Oh no, it's for this, it's for that. I do Post-it notes so their work's not covered in no, it's not. You're doing Post-it notes so that you can take them out and pretend that they did that themselves.
So very quick clarification, the way the moderation process works for anyone who's wondering right now is it's not like every single book ever goes to a moderator and the moderator picks what level they're at. No. So schools systematically, and you know what, why wouldn't you do this? I suppose it's less cheating than what we've just talked about in their book. But a lot of schools will, I'll go back to the start. Schools will look at their year 6 children as they're writing, and the teachers will almost always do some self-moderation. So all the year 6 teachers might come in. If you're in a small school, maybe you'll get other schools to come in and bring their books. This is not an official moderation. This is simply a practice, and this is good practice. This is a good thing to do, is to look at other schools, look at other classes, get together and really show where your levels are. Because as a teacher, we need to assess children who are below key stage. We need to assess children who are working towards the key stage level. We need to assess children who are expected, where they should be for writing. And we need to also have a bar for where children are great at. They're exceeding. They're amazing writers. So there's 4 levels to think about, really. And the bar for where children have to be be expected, where they should be in year 6, is so much higher than any bar for any other lesson. For any other piece of work. To be expected in maths, you've got to be a decent mathematician. You can get expected in maths if you're really good at arithmetic and get the odd reasoning question. It's you can be an okay mathematician and get expected. For reading, again, you need to be able to read and understand a text. But if you can read and understand a text, you're probably going to get to expected level.
Yeah, and the threshold for the SATs is there's normally like half the marks. Honestly, like you just need to show that you've got a good understanding of reading.
Exactly. So reaching expected in those. If you're not reaching expected in those, it's got to be for a reason,
and it is actually a genuine indication of you are sort of below the standard. With writing, and I'm just going to go just jump in here.
No, because you're a year 6 teacher.
Oh my god, I am not exaggerating when I say this, and I've said this for years. I think the expected level for writing, that bar that is set, should be equivalent for leaving secondary school.
Leaving secondary school?
I think it is 6th form level writing, because to be expected, genuinely expected, everyone fudges it. But to be actually expected, on paper, you have to be a perfect writer.
Okay, so come on in. So there are levels, like we said. Working towards, you're not quite there. Obviously, that's going to encompass a lot because you're not quite hitting everything.
I think probably about 80% of kids in the UK are actually working towards.
Okay, so expected level for writing. Yeah. Okay, what, as someone who has no idea, or maybe they're in year 6 and they're new, what should we see in a piece of writing from a child to be able to officially, properly, without fudging anything, from their independent writing, what should we be able to see?
It would almost be easier to say what can they get away with.
Okay.
Because otherwise I'm just going to list every single element of writing.
Okay, so obviously they need to understand everything.
The composition has to be perfect. So the structure has to be perfect. They have to have written across a variety of genres.
So this is a macro level of, you have to take into account a lot of writing.
So you're looking at across their book. Okay. Yeah. Punctuation has to be perfect. And I'm not joking.
And what do you mean by punctuation? Are we talking all punctuation?
So I'm talking, honestly, capital letters, full stops, commas in all of their uses.
Which is a lot.
Parenthesis. So we're talking brackets, dashes.
Yep.
colons and semicolons are where you can start getting on to greater depth.
Okay.
But even still these days, I think the bar is increasing more. You can see a semicolon and a colon, and they're still, that's just about expected.
Yeah.
Right? All the punctuation needs to be there. Speech needs to be perfectly punctuated. New line, new speaker. Yeah. Capital letter to start speech. End punctuation properly inside.
Yeah.
Whether it's question mark, whether it's a comma, exclamation mark, inside. Understanding reported speech, direct speech, and how to lay that out. All of it has to be there.
Contractions and spelling.
Right? Contractions, all the spelling has to be there, the handwriting. And the point is with expected writing, unlike other tests, is you have to have evidenced every single one to be expected. If you've done all of it, right, but you're terrible at spelling homophones, there is an argument there to say that kid is not expected. Now, the only thing that might save you is, and they introduced this, I don't know when, but I guess to help this situation is, a child is allowed one special weakness.
But am I right in thinking that it can't be spelling? It has to be it has to be ed suffix.
Exactly that. It can't just be an overarching thing. It can be handwriting.
Okay.
Because some kids do struggle with
and we're in the age now where is it as important as it was before?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. And I've had a lot, and it's funny because I've found a lot of my best writers often have terrible handwriting.
But here's the thing though. So as soon as handwriting's bad, that gives that child no leeway whatsoever for anything else.
Yeah, basically. Right.
So that
here's
child
the thing,
can't do
right?
anything wrong.
I'll pick out one of the smaller things. Modal verbs.
Right, yeah.
So if a
Would,
child,
should, could.
Yeah, if a child has written perfect, it's beautiful writing, right? They're really creative, and their punctuation's great, right? And you look through their writing. If you're doing it by the book, if you look through their writing and you haven't seen any examples of modal verbs being used correctly, they are not expected.
That's crazy.
That's technically how it should be done.
Yeah.
Writing moderations, does that happen? I don't know. It depends on who you're with.
So as someone who's outside of the year 6 bubble and stuff, so I've done year 3, year 4, and year 5. It kind of, each school or each district has their own way of almost extrapolating down what a year 6 expected is. So they'll say, okay, by year 5, we should be hitting all of this stuff. Because then in year 6, we can just go over everything and introduce the colons and semicolons.
Yeah, because there is no official standard for each year. It's just end of key stage 2.
So, like, from me looking in, I can honestly say that I think even at year 4 level, because we're extrapolating, the children are less proficient at writing. Yeah. I still think the level for expected is crazy.
Yeah,
and if I think about my cohorts, I probably get, because I'm really truthful and everything, and it's always completely independent, I get about 50 to 60% to expected in my cohort,
which is probably good.
And I think that's good. If I get half to expected, they should stay at expected, and then hopefully we're going to get some others to push it up a bit.
Yeah. And hopefully in year 6, it suddenly goes up to 90%
it's
across
really
the nation.
Weird. It's weird because it goes from 15% in year 3, 30% in year 4, 35% in year 5, and then 94% in year 6.
Yeah, all the
that's
schools,
crazy.
Really weird.
Yeah, there's year 6 teachers, bloody good, aren't they? But yeah, I mean, it's just. It seems mad. So very quickly, if that's expected level, okay, so it sounds like it's impossible to get.
Yeah.
What's greater depth?
Greater depth is unreal. I'm just going to vent for a second, right? Greater depth. The bar for greater depth is so high.
If you're saying expected is like secondary school.
Expected is you need to be a perfect writer.
Yeah. Yeah. So
with like very, very minor, there's such a small room for like a margin of error there. Such a small margin.
I'm thinking of a word which I hear all of the time in moderation, because obviously we go to moderation for year 4, year 3, year 5, and I know it's a big thing for year 6, and I hate it because we talked about how subjective writing is. Okay.
Yeah.
The number one word I hear when someone asks, "Are they greater depth?" They go, "Oh, where's that flair?"
The flair. Oh,
where's
my
that
God,
flair?
I hate it.
Where's that flair? What do you mean?
This is when,
flair?
for some reason, we then bring back in the creativity.
Yeah.
And then it goes down to this completely subjective.
So to be expected.
Line.
Grammar, punctuation,
Perfect
spelling.
writing.
It doesn't matter. It's monotonous and boring to read because all I'm scanning for is capital letters.
Yep, genuinely.
I don't read it and enjoy it.
No.
So greater depth suddenly, oh crap, yeah, wait, that needs to be good.
Greater depth is basically you've got your own authorial style.
That's crazy.
It is perfect.
10-year-olds.
Now, I'm talking now.
10-year-olds.
There is no leeway now.
Yeah.
So I've brought books that I thought are greater depth to moderation before, and I've had them knocked down because they've found like a mistake in a piece of writing and been like, well, they spelt consciousness wrong, and actually that shows they're probably not greater depth at spelling. Therefore, they can't be greater depth. I'm not even joking. I've had that. That's happened to me, like literally last year.
You get these like evil moderators as well.
Yeah.
Who are like, no, we're buying the book.
And here's the mad thing, right? And I know I'm kind of going to a separate point, but it just fits.
Go on.
Because this happened last year in a moderation. At the same time I'm sat there, I happen to be sat with the county moderator.
Okay, so you've gone to, is this external moderation or is this like just to help people out?
No, this is the official one.
Okay.
This is the official external moderation.
Okay.
There's two things that happen to schools, by the way. So if you're not in this world, this is what happens.
Yeah,
right?
so the teachers put their thing in, right?
Yeah, at the end of the year, teachers will always assess all their children's writing, right? And there's two things that will happen to just increase the reliability of this and keep schools accountable. You'll either be invited to a county moderation where loads of teachers go into like a big hall normally. You all sit around tables with people you don't know and you look at the work together, right? To make sure that you're not just cheating the system. Or every few years, your school will be like Ofsted, it'll be randomly selected for an internal moderation. You don't know when that's going to happen.
So someone comes into school.
Someone comes into the school that's been trained a bit further than everybody else on internal moderation.
One of our friends has done that, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've had it happen to me as well a couple of years ago at a different school.
Yeah.
Was internally moderated, and this person came in for a whole day, and they randomly select children from your list.
So when you go to the county one, can you take who you want?
Yes.
Because again, you can fudge that.
Yeah. So the county one is a bit more fudgeable because you just take your best ones.
And then if you say, well, if they say that's expected, you're like, right, we can get all of these through.
Yeah, exactly that. So the idea is if they don't disagree with your judgments at county, then you're trustworthy. And then all of your other judgments for the other 80%, 90% of your cohort, they won't question it.
So as long as you take a book you know is expected, then all the other people that you fudged through and said, oh yeah, they're expected,
exactly
no one's going to look at it.
But if you go with your books that are actually what it's supposed to be, you're supposed to go with your books that you're not too sure of.
Yeah.
And then they help you moderate. But the problem is if you go in, you have to give an initial assessment. So if you're saying, I think they're expected, and they knock down two of them to working towards,
they're going to have red flag, isn't it?
It's a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the rest of your books might be looked at now. So they're the two systems. Obviously, the one where they come into your school is a lot more intense.
Sure.
Because it's randomly picked, and you have to previously have already put in your assessments for these children.
Sure.
Because they're basically testing you. They're seeing, have you assessed these kids right? And in an internal one, if you've got one of them wrong, they then do have the power to be like, okay, let's look at. You've assessed this kid as expected, and I think it's working towards. So let's now look at all of the ones you've put as expected because we need to check them all now.
Yeah.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah. You can see why it comes in that people use published pieces and post-it notes and stuff because there's no trail. If that was to happen to you, you've suddenly got no trail and no way for them to sniff and say, oh, well, it's not.
Yeah. And every kid has to be ready. You can't just pick your 6 at the start of the year to be like, I'm going to fudge these 6 because I'll take them to moderation because you could get internally moderated.
Yeah. It's absolutely
so
crazy. Back
to the original, I think I can't remember what I was saying. There's something about greater depth, right?
Yeah, greater depth. And you went to moderation.
It's so annoying, right? And I got so frustrated at the time because I knew it would happen. I sat down at a table and I just happened to sit with the table that the person that was leading the moderation, like the leader, came over and sat with me. And I was like, oh, typical, here we go. Like, she's going to be harsh. I already knew the system was broken. So I already knew that she was going to be harsher than someone else. Yeah. I looked across at other tables and I spoke to some friends that were there from other schools who were like, yeah, these 2 guys on my table were both honestly just being like, I'll put yours through if you put mine through. And you just think, oh my God. So at potluck, I've sat here. She's knocked down a couple of my books, which I thought were amazing. I thought these kids were amazing. Yeah. And she's gone, but she's found 1 or 2 mistakes. I'm like, not great. And
gone really by the book.
They're not great to depth. And I'm thinking these kids are they're like 5, 6, 7 years above their level of age.
Yeah. They're 10.
Yeah, they're writing these beautiful pieces with their own style.
Yeah.
Didn't spell consciousness right.
Yeah.
And on the other table, you just see people. Yeah, great depth. Yeah. And I watched this one guy, and I won't forget it because it really annoyed me. I watched this one guy have an argument on my table with someone else who works at our school, saying that this kid that he's got was greater depth, right? I had a quick look at the book. Absolutely not. Barely expected by their standard. Yeah. Barely expected. Yeah. If you're being kind. Yeah. He just we wouldn't back down, and he ended up putting it through as greater depth. And you just think, oh, this is just such a stupid system. So that kid's got through, who's barely expected. My kid, who I think is greater depth, maybe isn't, because it's, we've got to trust this moderator. Yeah, sure. But is it at least extremely high expected? Yeah. Hasn't got through, and it's like, okay, so that's the data that's published now for our school, is it? I hate it.
It's completely broken, the whole system, and this comes the issue because, like, from mine and yours point of view, honestly, I look at this system for writing assessment, and I think it's an absolute joke. Yeah. I can't believe this is where we've landed. But then you look at what happened beforehand, and you look at teachers who are more experienced, like I said earlier, who are just like, no. Thank God they got rid of the old one, because at least teachers take back some control now. And I think there's 2 massive things wrong with this. The two biggest things that are wrong with this are, first and foremost, what it constitutes to be an expected writer and the grade to depth writer
Yep.
is way too hard. The kids are 10. So we've absolutely killed all creativity when it comes to writing. And do you know, very quickly, do you know why? Do you know how I know we've killed all creativity with writing? Because we'll read a class book together. And instead of just enjoying the book, I'll have children put their hand up and go, shouldn't there be a comma after that front step adverbial?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. This is a published author. We're reading Varjak Poor. This is such a cool story. And they're sat there thinking, well, wait a minute. This author didn't put fronted book. This author didn't use speech in the way we've been
They started
taught.
with and.
They started with and
That's
at the start of the
wrong.
writing. Yeah, because it's bloody good. It's a bloody good book, and it's writing. It should be malleable. It should be fun. It should be something we can enjoy.
There are some rules to be broken.
Exactly.
Just going back to this point here, I'm just going to read this again. Part of the review, before this all came in, teachers, big risk of teacher assessment. Teachers make generous assessments under increasing pressures.
There you go.
I think that summarises everything we just said. That's exactly what's happened. Increasing pressures, increasing bar. What's that happened? Generous assessments, of course it has.
Because guess what? If you do the right thing in this system, which is to completely independent writing. So if you're going to do this thing where you can't touch it because you need to show that it's their writing, if you actually do that, none of your kids will get expected.
Can you tell me then? I know we've kind of gone over it, but I want a really, really clear answer now, concise. What would you constitute as an independent right?
Okay.
And I want people, any teachers listening, I want you to think of this as what you do or not at your school. And we're not saying like you're bad or good, but just think about it.
Can I clarify with you?
Yeah.
Is it what I think independent right should be, or is it what I currently see independent right as?
No, it's what you think it's supposed to be like,
right
based
now.
on your knowledge of the system.
Okay.
What a true independent right is supposed to look like. So what you see in the classroom, what they can and can't have to help and all that.
Okay. For me personally, it would start off with the 2 or 3 weeks prior to the writing. So you would have to teach children explicitly and give them chance to practice with your help before the independent right. The reason you have to do that is because when it comes to independent right, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. So for example, let's say we're doing a story middle, right? We're not doing a full story. We're just going to concentrate in the middle where we're going to have a setting description, a bit of action, and then it's going to end with a dialogue. So we're bringing together a lot of stuff we've done before. We might do a couple of lessons on speech where we literally just practice how to build a sentence using speech, and maybe they get a go at writing a dialogue. Completely separate to anything, but I'm there with them, teaching them how to do it, giving them feedback.
Lots of feedback,
lots of marking, lots of group work, lots of verbal feedback,
So you've done that for a couple of weeks. You've
done
all
that,
this pre-teaching,
all the setting,
really
all the
heavily
pre-teaching.
involved, modelled with you. Right?
So then it comes to the day where I want to do an independent writing. They've done lots of practice. I think this is really important. They've done lots of practice with me helping them and
What's
giving
it
them feedback.
supposed to look like?
It should be the children sat there for an extended period of time. They've done their plan. So again, you've done a plan with them in the lessons beforehand. Not where you've fed them exactly what to put, but you've given them lots of opportunities to take from. You've given them prompts on the board. You've given them word mats. You've given them everything they could possibly need, all of the kind of structure they could possibly have for them to take from to plan. Not me. I'm not giving them the plan. I'm just facilitating the plan. Then when it comes to the independent right on the day, all of that structure, the word mats aren't out anymore. The waggle, the example writing, that's not on the table anymore. What's on their table is their plan that they've done from all the stuff. They've got all the work previously where they've practiced. On the board, I would put what I want to see in their writing. So I would put on the board
like
sentence starters. Yeah, sentence starters. Dialogue. I might put noun phrases. I don't give them the noun phrases, but I just say I want to see noun phrases. So the child can look at it and go, okay, I need to put noun phrases in, and then independently do it. So prompts on the board of what I want to see.
Do you think that's still independent?
Their plan. I think that's independent in that the writing, what they produce, is completely independent. Because I can't, this is where I have to draw the line. Because I can't let them plan and have nothing and then write. It won't produce anything that's remotely good.
Surely that just shows that they're not.
No. Okay, I completely agree. And if we're going off purely independent,
I
think that's fine. I think a nice middle ground is not giving them any hint as to how to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
But what I want to see, for example, I wouldn't not give them the genre. Okay, so I would say to them, okay, we're doing a like I said, a story middle. I need to see noun phrases. I need to see description. I need to see a setting description and a piece of action before we go into a dialogue with two characters of your choice.
But isn't even that funny if you really think about it?
Yeah, I know.
Because really, the only reason you're doing that is because you know that you need to tick these boxes off for them to get to expected.
Well, I guess that is true, but also I'm kind of testing them in a way to see if they know how to apply noun phrases.
But because you've been so my argument, I'm just going to be devil's advocate. Because I'm probably worse than you, by the way. I'll over support, and I think I really shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because the system's so broken.
Yeah. Well,
right?
very quickly, some people put the sentence starters on the board.
Yeah.
So they'll put surprisingly, comma, level. And I'm like, that is just showing them how to do front end. That's, to me, that's very different.
Yeah, you've now shown them what to do.
Sorry, even what I do.
I honestly think if we were truly doing independent writing, it should just be everything you talked about there, even like saying what to have in it, like noun phrases and things. They've had opportunities to learn that in the 3 weeks before. When it comes to independent write, I think if we were doing it properly, it should be test conditions.
Yeah.
It should be, okay, guys, today this is what you're writing. You're going to use everything you've learned that you can think of. Here's the title.
But don't you think that goes back to the old system, which is just a cold prompt, and then you just turn into the external writer?
Yeah, but I think that's what it's supposed to be, because I think that's actually what it was supposed to be. That's the opinion I get, is that...
But I thought it said, like, have marking, have feedback, help them out.
Yeah, that's fine. Marking feedback after. But I think each of the pieces of writing across the year should be test conditions plus the 3 weeks before it where you've actually taught
It's funny because the things I write on the board are the things I have on my assessment sheets for them.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, to be year 4, because in our school, we have every year group, the English leads have made their own kind of grid.
Yeah,
so the year 6 grid's obvious because it's just everything.
Yeah.
But my year 4 grid, for example, would say evidence of dialogue between 2 characters. Simple as that. It doesn't have to be anything more complicated than just 2 characters talking. Yeah. So I'll say to them, okay, in this piece of writing, I'd like to see dialogue between 2 characters because I need to tick it off.
But really, could someone write a good story without dialogue? Yeah.
Yeah,
that does exist in reality.
Yeah, but if you've taught them, you'd hope they'd apply.
You'd hope they would, And I think the point, I think what it's supposed to be is, it is just a chance. Then you've taught them the dialogue, so it's up to them now whether they want to put it in or not. And if they don't,
that's crazy.
And if they don't put it in, we've got a system that we don't agree with that says they're not expected.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in reality, they could have written a really nice story without dialogue.
Yeah.
And they could show that they actually are an expected level writer. They just haven't happened to use dialogue. So I think the system infiltrates our minds from even the deepest levels of trying to do things right.
Because when you do a genre, for example, let's say I'm doing non-chronological report, or let's say a newspaper report rather. Yeah. I know there's like a tick box somewhere where it's like a caption needs to show a caption to a picture. And I'm like, the only chance I'll ever get to do that is a newspaper report or maybe a non-chronological report. So
you make sure they do it.
So when it comes to that, if I don't tell them to do it and they don't do it, that means that kid for that year now is not expected because they've missed their one thing. So I think that it's true. It's double-edged sword here, which is the issue is it's really hard to reach any kind of level because it's just ridiculously high expectations for the children to reach. That needs to be sorted, in my opinion. But because it's ridiculously high, you need to get absolutely everything in your writing, and only some genres lend themselves to some of the things you need to get. When it comes to writing it, you're going to say to your kids, listen, at the very least, I need to see a dialogue. Yeah. Then what happens is, the other problem is how far schools want to push this and how far we're going to fudge it, because the scale of independence, to go back to your question, it is a sliding scale. Yeah. So how independent is writing? Cool. We could go from literally saying to them, write, nothing else. We could say, write a newspaper report. We could say, write a newspaper report, make sure you put your subtitles in, your caption in, and it's in paragraphs, please. Write a newspaper report about this thing. You've not even got the choice anymore. It's about this thing, because I think choice is a big thing in independent writing. We always give the children the choice. Yeah. For example, in the dialogue that we're writing with my year 4s currently, it's between anyone. And the setting, they can run past whatever they want. So there's the choice, but the structure's always
the same. Do you want to know one more way that is often fudged? I've seen this a lot in year 6. Yeah. I've seen it a lot. Is the plan also gets taken into account. So you were talking about doing a plan, like maybe quite a scaffolded plan. Yeah. That wouldn't go down in year 6. In moderation, if the plan looks like it had a bit too much scaffolding in it, the piece of writing gets struck off. Wow. It can't be used. Yeah. I'm not even joking. Yeah. So as you can imagine.
Well, I guess so, because I have the plan with them when they're right.
Yeah, right. So, easy way to fudge it. Plan doesn't go in the book.
So did they not show evidence of a plan?
Yeah, they have to. You're supposed to.
So what would you do?
So what you do, you just have another plan.
Oh, it's
People
just
do it.
joke.
People do it.
Such
I'm not joking.
A joke, innit?
People will have like a really quick plan they do in their books to make it look good, and then they'll have the real plan that they have on a bit of paper that gets put in the bin afterwards. Yeah. It happens.
One big post-it note.
Yeah, literally. And I just hate it. So I think, just to summarize, because we could talk about this forever. Yeah. No. But to summarize, your big question about the independence. How independent is it? I don't know, because it's not monitored. It's not standardized. The independence of writing isn't remotely standardized, and it's totally fudgeable.
So that was lost with the exam.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that was lost at the exam.
So what's the answer? This is the thing I've been thinking about the whole time, all the way in the lead up to this episode. Because normally I'm like, I just don't know, because I don't think the exam. I think the exam was horribly flawed, as we've talked about. for all the reasons we've said at the start. Yeah. I think this system has been taken advantage of even more.
Sure.
I think to the absolute max, and it's meant that the bar is raised now to an unattainable standard for an actual average child. So what's the answer? And it was funny enough, when I was reading this review, I was like, oh, the answer was what the review said in 2011. Well, honestly.
But is it like because that was what happened and where we are?
Yeah, we just didn't do it probably. Yeah, it got taken advantage of. I don't know. I think there is a middle ground.
Yeah.
I think there is a middle ground where we still look at lots of pieces of writing from across the year.
Sure.
We scrap this stupid mentality of
teachers can't possibly give any input.
Yeah, teachers can't possibly give. It's just an exercise book.
I would say, I think that's really good. I'm going to jump in there because I think what you're saying is absolutely right. Why not moderate the like it said, the process of you marking as well, rather than just the children?
Yeah, and I think every school, I think we make it more commonplace that we have an external moderator. We get rid of this. We get rid of this stupid county moderation stuff, and it's just every year someone comes into your school and they look at some books with you, and that is just how it works every single year. Could it still be fudged? Yeah, I'm sure it can.
Yeah,
but we get rid of published work. That's just a rule now. You can't have it because we know it's fake.
Yeah, when you're as a moderator and you see that, you must know it's completely cheating.
Yeah, it's stupid. And we just make some rules of like, okay, if the work has no teacher marking on it, we assume that's been fudged. If it's a published book, we assume it's been fudged, and we just make all these things just outcast. And it's like, no, the only thing that's acceptable now is an exercise book full of writing. It's got your assessment and marking all over it.
Yeah. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with just flicking back a couple of pages.
Yeah.
Oh, they did learn writing here.
Yeah.
Okay, and they've applied. Okay, cool. Or they got it there and they got it a bit wrong, but then the teacher said, remember this, and they fixed it. Oh, that's good. That's a good process. Because guess what? Official, proper authors do not put in their first draft.
Yeah.
Ever. I say it to the kids all the time. We know authors who've done books to help with, tests and things, vocabulary books. They have an editor, and like, thank God for my editor. Because I constantly make these grammatical errors, and it's just of course these are 10.
Yeah,
and all we've done, by the way, to get on my high horse now, but all we've done with writing is completely kill it. Completely kill it, because writing now is a tick box exercise. Even the most independent of writers, the most teachers who want to give the least possible, will say to their children, I need to see this, and this. The children are sat there, instead of thinking, what's next? What's the next thing that'll make this story really interesting?
What will I like?
No, not what I like. Doesn't matter. Because, oh gosh, Mr. Price is saying he needs to see a noun phrase because he wants to tick the box. Oh, he wants to tick off. Okay, let's put a noun phrase in. It's completely irrelevant.
I feel sorry for my year sixes because we give them. It takes so long to mark anything. Yeah. But we give them. I show them the assessment grid.
Yeah.
Because they're just that. More
of course. I show my year four.
I show them all the time, and I say, look, at the end of the day, kids, this is what I'm assessing against. To be, and I tell them straight away at the start of the year, to be expected, you need to have basically ticked off all these boxes a couple of times.
Yeah.
To show that you can do it. And they will. They'll just look at their target cards now, and I actually hate it. I'm sat there thinking, I just want them to enjoy the writing. What they're really doing is sat there thinking, I haven't done any modal verbs in a while. I better put some into this writing.
And then you read it, and it's so clunky. But guess what? You don't even read it properly when you mark it, because all you're going is modal verb, tick, capitalized tick, let's go off. It doesn't matter that there's no way that I could have does not remotely fit into that piece of writing.
The flow of the writing. It doesn't matter.
It's a beautiful description. And it goes, we should go. Oh, okay. I guess you're expected now.
Yeah.
It's just
one of the first times in our episodes, I don't really know what the answer is. Even what I just said there, hugely flawed.
Yeah, of course it is.
I
was going to come back to it, and I was like, there's no point, because we know it's flawed.
Yeah.
Do you know what it should be? I think the number one thing we can do right now, and it should be absolutely introduced straight away, is quite simply lower the bloody levels.
Yeah.
Lower the levels. That's the number one thing. Stop expecting.
Because the government love it. The government know there's all the fudging is happening, but it looks good.
But
okay, wow! Look how good our country is.
Yeah, but look at
it's all fake. Whoa, look how good our country is.
Lower the bar. They're still going to be. We've decided what expected is.
Yeah.
The government go, 80% are expected. Okay, lower the bar. Guess what? 80% will still be expected.
Yeah.
So you can still go around and say, actually, I bet.
Yeah.
No one cares. Let children absolutely don't like writing anymore, who would have loved it before because they can't be creative. Why don't they go and draw a comic book? Because that's a lovely bit of writing. It's amazing. No chance for that ever. Boring.
Just for a bit of fun, a couple of years ago, I got because we went to the same school. We both went to it. We're in Kent. Grammar schools are heavy around here. We both went to a grammar school.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I went to a grammar school. I wonder what my writing was like. And I loved creative writing. And I got my year 7 books out, and they were atrocious. Atrocious.
But were they similar to where your children would be today if you didn't do all the fudging?
Yeah, almost definitely.
So you were absolutely standard.
I'll tell you what, it was good. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is really well written in terms of like creativity.
Sure.
But my spellings were dreadful.
Yeah.
I didn't use any correct punctuation anywhere. But if you just read it out loud, it was really good.
Because people would say to that, oh, well, it's better now then. And it's like, no. All that's happened in the meantime is tens and hundreds of hours of teacher work to fudge what you were as a writer to looking pristine and perfect. The actual ability of you to the actual ability of the children now, not much different at all.
No, of course it's not.
And you got to enjoy your writing more. And guess what? You still can't spell.
Yeah. But I guess my overall point was, I still went to grammar school.
Yeah.
Whereas now, that would have been assessed as working toward. There's no way I would have been able to go to grammar school with working toward. That would have been like, you're going to grammar school with working towards writing.
Yeah, but again, I'm going to come back to the point. It's the same level. Like the children, it's the same. You would have been expected because your teacher would have fudged it back then if it was a system now.
I see what you mean.
So it's the exact same. We're making up these boundaries and putting a really high marker and putting children down as they can't write when they bloody can because they're 10.
Yeah, for a 10-year-old they can write.
Yeah. Exactly. And do you know what? What is writing? It's just this construct of, you won't follow these rules. Oh, but also, be careful when you put that in the middle of a sentence because sometimes you don't need a comma. But if you put which, you do need a comma. Get in the bin. I don't care. I don't care. When they read their book from, whoever's reading, they've got their class text and there's no following this at all. But this is a published author, by the way, of a bestseller. And you're loving this book. Who cares where the comma goes?
Yeah.
No one.
Right, Dylan, can I end this conversation with a summary of, just because it makes a nice
Please do, because I need to go. I've got brunch on the way. I've got brunch, you'll be pleased to know.
Is it the finest?
Yeah, it's the finest.
A summary then of why the system's broken. There's some bullet points we've talked about, right?
Hurry
up. Number one.
Yeah. Oh, we just spent an hour, so this minute will help. Go on.
Too much teacher input. I think we explored that. Even from your analogy, it's too much teacher input. We think we do too much. The published workbooks. They're broken. They're just a way of faking it.
Bye, Felicia.
Stupid rules around having work which has been marked by teachers.
Wait, we have to mark everything to the nth degree, but this one thing, no, don't touch it.
Yeah, not allowed to mark it. Can't show any evidence.
Is marking useful or not then? Because if it's not useful, I won't do it for anything.
Yeah. It's stupidly subjective.
Yeah.
As I said from my experience with the moderation.
That'll never go. To me, it's a bit like art. You know, you can with art you can look at your strokes and your pencil and stuff
writing is
like
art,
that.
isn't it? Really,
it is completely.
Teacher confidence to grade others' work. You know, if you're sat there and they're not confident, you're not confident. Is that expected? Yeah, I think so.
Or if someone can bully you away, like you said, it's great depth, not backing down, and you're like, oh, okay, well,
they're really confident.
It's not my job to care. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want an argument of moderation. And the final one was just your point. Yeah, how independent really is it? Yeah, no. Is it really independent? I don't know. We can argue about the scale of what independence is, but it's not. It's not moderated independence. Yeah.
So why wouldn't you push that boat?
Yeah, of course.
Because until the levels change, that's my number one thing to come out of this. What could we do immediately to start fixing the problem?
What would be your
change
levels to how much of how percentage of children in the country that are truly producing independent writing across the year? As there are examples that go to moderation. Truly independent. What would you say?
5%.
Yeah, I was going to say something under 10 as well. Yeah. I reckon 5%. Yeah.
Because if you're saying what I do is not independent, it's probably 0. Yeah. Genuinely.
Yeah.
If
you're perfect.
Giving no. I'm just saying if you give the genre and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you're saying that's not independent,
I don't think it is.
Then no one.
Yeah, it's scaffolded too much.
Yeah, no one. But if you're giving the genre and saying at some point put noun phrases and modal verbs and this and that, I'd argue that's still independent.
Yeah, and I think so as well. But in our system, I don't think it is.
Yeah, the system's broken.
Because you told them what to put in it.
Yeah, the system's broken.
Yeah, mad. Completely broken.
Completely.
Good vent.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know what you guys think because I don't know what the answer is. I don't think you know what the answer is.
No, not at all.
You might have a really good idea of how we should change the system to actually assess writing a bit more effectively.
And what do you do in your school? You might message us. We're not going to put it anywhere, guys, especially on this. But if you've seen stuff which you just think is crazy or... what works for you, what doesn't work? Have you been asked to do something ridiculous when it comes to writing before, which not only completely cheats the system, but adds unbelievable stress to your workload, and you just think...
Email us at whistleblow@teach.
Find us on Instagram, that's the best place, @Teach Street Repeat Podcast. And guys, it's been over a year. Hope you're enjoying it. If you've been listening all year and you've got this far in the episode, please send us a message so we can see who you are, because we know a lot of you. There's a load more out there. We see the numbers, but we don't hear from you. So do message us, guys. Let us know what you think.
Please message us and share our podcast so we can get money. Please.
No. So we can get money. Oh my God. See you next week.